Hi everybody, it's Russ. What's going on? Russell Hammers 11. Hope you're safe and well. This is going to be a bit different today, but we thought, why not? Because obviously we've reached our 100th guest, which was posted today. Mr. Chris Akabusi was kind enough to spare us some time. And that's gone up, and everyone's enjoying that. And we thought we'd do something different, and we thought we'd try something live. And for this inaugural live stream, how exciting is this? We've got Tom from Hammers Chat. Tom, how are you, man?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I didn't actually know that Chris Akabusi was your 100th guest. So,
what
a follow-up from this?
Is it too late to get Charlie Walsh in? Yeah, that's too late. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great man. But yes, I'm very excited to be here, especially doing it live as well. Obviously, you pitched the idea to me earlier, and I was all for it. So yeah, I'm glad to.
Yeah, well, I thought you do the watch-alongs and stuff. So I thought it's. Yeah. I mean, it's no different. I mean, I don't edit the videos anyway. It's just that you got to be just we'll have a go and see what happens more than anything. So obviously, thanks for coming on, Tom. Obviously, I got you a bit excited last week at the Chelsea game when I came on the live stream and said, "Hey, come on," because we've had everyone else. We've had Tom on, so I'm really glad to have you on finally. Now, what we try and do, and obviously because this is a live show today, please feel free to make comments and stuff as we go along. Anything I say that's probably wrong factually, I'm sure someone will pick me up on it. But bugger it, we're going live today. So what I do with everyone, Tom, is I find out their West Ham origins, so their story. So why is West Ham your club?
Unfortunately, I'll say unfortunately, it was just my entire family is all sort of the history. They will go back through East London, and everybody seems to. I guess it's similar to most in terms of oh great, he's here. It all went back through East London, and it seemed like everybody from my nan, my granddad, all different sides of the family, everybody was a West Ham fan. A lot of them grew up in Dagenham and Romford and sort of worked on the docks and that kind of stuff, Oh, she's here as well. Oh, great. Good friends of the pair of them. So, yeah, it kind of came through that and my dad as well. His dad, the only person really in the family that was the weird one. He supported Arsenal. But I think my dad's stepdad was a West Ham fan as well, and he kind of ushered him in to supporting West Ham and filtered through to me and to my brother and to everybody else. So it's kind of our whole family from every angle you look at is West Ham, bar my granddad on my dad's side who decided to go for Arsenal. So yeah.
That must be interesting when it comes to when it came to sort of West Ham versus Arsenal games.
Yeah. Actually, it was because it was one of my first ever games, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second. Was Arsenal. So yeah, it was a weird times.
Yeah, brilliant. And so let's do it. Yeah, what was your first game? Was it Arsenal?
It was not. I still do have the programs here. They're up in the loft. 2001 was my first game. West Ham versus Newcastle, 3-0 game. Remember it well. It was life for me. I think it was maybe Hutchinson. I was just checking earlier who the scorers were. There you go. Hutchinson, Di Canio, and Canute.
Wow.
So yeah, that was my first ever game. Repka's debut, I think, in the Premier League and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the first game I ever went to. And I went to a few that season. It was kind of, I think I was a bit scared of the noises and stuff like that. Yeah. But I remember during sort of those days, my dad would take me down to Chadwell Heath quite a lot, photos with all the players and sitting waiting for Sebastian Schemmel for like 30 minutes while he was on his car phone in the training ground. I don't know if anybody else has similar stories of that. But yeah, so that was me before I moved up to Yorkshire, because I'm a Southend boy, and I was down south till I was 6 or 7. So yeah, I moved up to Yorkshire and kind of had to leave West Ham behind. But those are my sort of earliest memories that I had of.
So you moved. So no, was it still Peter Pan's playground when you were at Southend, or was it now the Adventure Island?
No, it was Peter Pan's, I think, back then. It was great summers there, especially when my cousin used to work there as well. And I know Charlie will hate me for doing this, but this was my main bit of memorabilia. But this was from if we're talking early memories, this is from obviously the Upton Park wall. Was the first thing that my dad sort of got me as a present. I think my nan bought it for myself and my dad. So my early memories, if we were ever in that area, she literally has just woken up. It was the earliest memories was whenever we sort of went past Green Street and we're going down there, we always went to look for the brick. So in my head, always going down and seeing the brick was part of my early memories, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I know Southend, the big whip. That was my one. I love the big whip. It was just like you just get like this neck. It was like it was just going to rip your neck off. It was ridiculous. But no, yeah, I know what you mean. And so since then, obviously, since obviously your first games, lots of obviously you do the Hammers Chat stuff and obviously seeing games and things like that. What's like some sort of big memories, some sort of things that stick out, in your sort of your fan career, so to speak, at the moment?
I mean, when I was at uni in Sheffield, it was I was doing quite a well-paid job. Just for you, that Charlie. I was in quite a well-paid sort of bar job. I was picking up a lot of shifts during the week and stuff. So I was travelling home and away sort of every other weekend, and I met some great people doing that for a few years, friends that I'll carry through with me for the rest of my life. And the Hammers Chat thing sort of came around the same sort of time. I think the first ever time. Don't you start. I'm trying to do a live stream here.
Get some professionalism, please, Tom. This isn't Hammers Chat.
I remember with Hammers Chat, the first ever show I ever did with those guys was when we beat Liverpool when Bonner scored in the 119th minute.
Wow.
So, and at the time we were on sort of 300 subscribers. And although Charlie, Gonzo and Gio were there from the start, I always I think they see me as the fourth sort of member, and I disappear a little bit now and again. But I've always helped with, the graphic design area. That's my Hammers Chat forte, self-taught. But in terms of the fan stuff, I think it's just those friendships almost that I built with those guys, because obviously we have the boats and stuff, and it was weird meeting up and seeing everybody for the first time sort of a couple of months after, the final season had finished in the Boleyn, and just meeting those guys and knowing that every time you go down, you've always got somebody that's there for you. And the thing is, I'm not talking about just sort of West Ham, but in life as well. Some of these guys, Gio and Charlie specifically, that have reached an arm out when things aren't great with my own personal problems and stuff. So, I mean, these guys genuinely will be friends for the rest of my life. And that aspect, I wish it was like a West Ham fan memory, but I think just meeting people like that, I guess, for me has been one of the best moments about West Ham. Yeah, very true, Charlie, very true. I'm just going to have to put her out because otherwise she will keep moaning.
Go for it. In the meantime, I'll fill in. Obviously, we've got some great guests coming up as well. We've got some ex-players coming up very, very shortly this weekend. So anyway, that advertisement going on. So do you know what? I totally get it about sort of the Hammers Chat thing and sort of the friends you make, because and I've said it almost every video, but it's so true. We're not in it for the football. We're not. We've backed the wrong bloody horse, if we are, to be honest.
Exactly.
But obviously, it's about the community.
Yeah.
And as you said, you started with 300. Christ, Hammers Chat, 12,500, something like that, subscribers now.
Crazy.
And that's not on the main, that's just the main channel. I mean, for this channel itself, was it 7 weeks ago I started it? We're at 1,000 now, 100 guests. And it's back-to-back interviews. And people are just, and it's all about the community. And it's all about every fan journey is different. Every player's journey is different. Why they're West Ham. Some are born into it. Some literally watching Match of the Day and they just pick that team because it's claret and blue, and then 70 years later they're still supporting the same team. But through thick and thin, mainly
the thing is, I mean, I do there are, don't get me wrong, like there are some great memories that I have when I'm down there. I mean, most of mine, as Charlie will tell you, I am usually absolutely twatted in, and I can't remember it. I've had fights with people in rollerbladers in Stratford International, and I've had, times where I've nearly not got on coaches due to myself and Gio being too inebriated and missing trains and just stuff like that. But I mean, of
course, you and Gio, you're like miles up the bloody. That's what I give so much respect. I moan about having to get I live in Hornchurch or Gideon Park, let's be honest. On the cusp. Depends who I'm talking to. If I'm trying to be with the, trying to be sort of a commoner, I'm in the Hornchurch. If I'm not, I'm at Gideon Park. And I moan about getting having to drive to Newby Park, to get this, because the rail replacement buses, guys like yourself, Geo, even like the Scandinavian Hammers, people like that. Do you know what? It just, nothing. Even more so, you're more fanatic. Go
on. I never knew how tough Gio's journey was, and don't get me wrong, like his journey is awful because he sets off the day before me. But when I was coming down sort of every other weekend, it was midnight buses from Leeds bus station, and then arriving down at London Victoria for 7 o'clock, so we could all go, myself, Charlie, Gio, Tom Down, Bears, other people, part of the Hammers Chat community, so we could jump over to the Golden Grove for 7 o'clock breakfast and drinks, or Coke if you're Charlie. So it's that's Coca-Cola, by the way, if nobody knows Charlie. He doesn't drink, nor does he take drugs. But yeah, it's that getting up and being 12 o'clock, even though you're probably going to lose, or it's not going to be the result that you always wanted, you do it for the people you meet when you're down there. So that's, like I said, I've got so many good memories that I could talk about. There's obviously loads from seeing it. I mean, I am a season ticket holder as well, but it's, like I said, the people just carry you really. With
it's true.
Club, so yeah.
So it's so true, and I think it's great that football's back. It's great that we're doing. There's something new to moan about more than anything for West Ham fans. But I think it's until everyone's back, until those 60,000 get back into London Stadium and everyone sings Bubbles together. It's the football is literally a small portion of a small chunk of the pie chart. It's all about, as you said, meeting up with the guys. I mean, obviously at the moment you're doing everything virtually. You haven't seen each other for ages, and you're still keeping some, getting some great content going. But it's not the same as being on the boat, is it? And having a beer afterwards. And I've made a vow that next season to get to one of the boats after the game. Obviously, I can't go before the game. I'm there 4 hours before, as you know.
Do not go before the game, because you will be playing all sorts inside the stadium.
Gosh, could you imagine? I predict a riot. They'll all be coming up. But no, it's one of those things. Because I've made a lot of new friends on this channel doing it, who I haven't really spoken to. No disrespect, I haven't spoken to you before, Charlie. No. Actually, tell a lie, Charlie. I did meet Charlie and Gio many years ago, but we met and we didn't meet. Charlie. Yeah. I knew you from somewhere, and it turned out like, I don't know, 5 years ago he came up to the box once, and him and Gio. But all those, and Gonzo. I'm Gonzo's personal photographer now. So yeah. When you see his green screen pictures, you go, they look really good. I did them yesterday. So it's that's great fun, isn't it? And everyone chips in, same as this. Everyone chips in with ideas for people. Interview this person, or I get a text and this person's phone number, he wants to get involved, and it's I think I'm a little bit biased, but I'm pretty sure no other club does what we do. Do you know, in terms of that level of in terms of that sort of level of togetherness, you watch Ham. I mean, the best thing of watching an Arsenal defeat is then watching Arsenal fan TV the next day, isn't it? That's what everybody does. West Ham fans, we have a moan, but that's it. We're done. We're sorted. So it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, Charlie's are a risky. Yes, they certainly are. Pre-match boats are a risky prospect, especially when I'm there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Although that's what I don't like about these games at the moment. It's like 6 o'clock games, and
I know.
Oh, I tell you what, it's ridiculous.
Not a good
I know,
routine.
I hate it. Evening, Andy. No, I just hate it. It's like yesterday, wasn't it? We had the 6 o'clock game, but there was it Millwall versus Middlesbrough was 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I think there's. Even Super Sunday this weekend. It's like 4 games back to back on Sunday. It's like.
It's brilliant, but I just can't keep up. Literally,
I wanted more than football. I wanted it so much. I'm sure everybody else does, but then it's like being rammed down your throat. It's like, well, just just ease me back in, please.
I'm very similar to what Rebecca says, actually. I'm the same. I will check my phone and I'll be like, oh my God, there was 2 6 o'clock games. I mean, obviously, probably everyone's been aware today. Obviously, Bournemouth drew against Tottenham, as I could have predicted. And Everton drew today. And I think United are beating Aston Villa. So again, things are still going our way. I think we've only had one result's hasn't gone our way since the restart, and that was, I think, Brighton beating Arsenal. Every other game has gone our way, and we
Watford the other day against Sheffield.
Watford,
probably the bigger one, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's going to be a big couple of games coming up, mate. Big couple of games.
And what you can watch myself and Charlie's demise potentially on the final day of the season. That'll be fun, won't it? Oh my God, I haven't even thought about that before now. But imagine we just get relegated on the final day.
I know.
How would we react? I don't know. That's something.
Yeah. I think I might have to do a special live stream from the ground. Could you imagine just me hanging myself off the main butt, going, oh my God, we got to play. But then I'm thinking, how are we going to deal with Millwall next season? Right. Let's get on. So obviously, the whole point of this is we can talk about West Ham all the time, and that's what we do. But it's about this Hammers 11, and so the idea is everyone you pick your 11, and you could pick whoever you want. To be honest, it could be. I mean, I've got a great one coming up from a guy from the States. I'll probably post that tomorrow about he did the whole team based on the letter B, like the B team. So they had to all start their surname with a B, and it's quite funny because it's quite an experienced fan, we call him. But the only caveat really is you had to be alive to have seen him play. That's it.
That's fair enough.
That's
all right.
So yeah. And we're doing things a bit differently. We're live now, obviously, so you're not going to have the little team selection on that side. I'm not used to it on that side. We're going to have do things a little bit differently today. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I've been busy on PowerPoint tonight. my poor wife and my daughter have been eating their dinner, and I've been huddled over PowerPoint over Tom's selection. Right, so Tom. Let's go for. Let's go for your goalkeeper. Let's start with your goalkeeper. Who's in goal for the Tom 11?
It's Rob Green in goal for me. Rob Green. I think since I've been alive and watching West Ham, I think there's I would say been maybe better standards of keepers maybe that we've seen at the club in terms of sort of like Fabianski. I think is obviously the main one. But during my time, I guess, being a fan, we've had what feels like so many. I think the earliest memory I have is of Shaka Hislop. And, we've got Rob Green, UC Askalainen, Manuel Almunia for a bit, David James, those kind of guys.
Manuel Almunia, great shout. I forgot, mate. Love it, yeah.
But for me, Rob Green was always the standout. My earliest memories, like I said, of seeing week in, week out was that big mop hairdo. And obviously what happened for England, which I don't think was his fault. I think that those bloody Jabulani balls or whatever they were, with all the swerving in the air, there was all that.
I totally agree.
And it kind of derailed his career, but I always thought he was an absolutely brilliant servant for us. And I wanted in my head to potentially pick the best keeper, which was obviously, in my opinion, Fabianski. But for me, I'm sorry, I'm just giving you a pre-warning. I'm really sorry.
Spoiler, Charlie, you might want to switch off now. Anyway, carry
on. But yeah, for me,
I said my phone. Don't worry. Sorry.
But for me, Rob Green is kind of the earliest or the best of the bunch. I remember from me growing up. No,
I agree. And you're right. I mean, Shaka Hislop. He'd be a good person to get on the show, wouldn't he?
He would indeed.
Sunday. No, honestly, yeah, Greeno. Greeno's brilliant. He's a great, and what I like now is it's almost like stage 2 of him. You've got his crazy, Seamus haircut that he had, which was just brilliant, and I love him, and he just doesn't take himself too seriously. And I love people that do that, like Peter Crouch and people like that. They're very fortunate position, but they still can take the piss out of them. The fact that he's got a picture of him with the Chelsea, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love it. And when he had obviously number 6 stitched in his hand and on his gloves, and good shout, great shout. Right, okay. Greeno is in. Let's go for left back. Who's your left back?
It's unfortunately not based on recent form, but it is Aaron Cresswell. I say this. I was torn here because I don't always feel like we've had amazing left backs since I've been alive. Anyway, obviously, I guess you could say Dix, but that's kind of I was in nappies and prams and stuff, so it's not for me. And also, I know we had like Ilunga and Razvan Rat, as Charlie pointed out, and Pablo Armero and people like that, but we've never had a sort of a solidified left back who was good enough. I mean, Christian Daly maybe played over there. I can't remember too much whether he was sort of left back or centre half or whatever. My mind is a blank with that one. But for me, for some reason, Cresswell sticks out just for those first couple of seasons because I honestly thought he was going to go on to do bigger and better things. Like those first couple of seasons when we signed him from Ipswich, he was just on track to be one of the best left backs in the Premier League. I mean, his dead ball, set pieces, all that sort of, the intangibles, the passing, the assists, bombing forward. I think that injury that happened in pre-season with his knee ligaments or something, I think that obviously derailed him a bit because he sort of seemed to go downward from that point. But those first couple of seasons he was with us, I thought he was one of the best left backs in England, and it's unfortunate to see what's happened to him now, where we're sort of, can't really rely on him too much anymore. But I mean that goal, the free kick against Stoke, sticks out for me as one of my favourite memories of his. He was, such a good player in his prime years at West Ham, those first couple of years at West Ham. So
he's been here a fair while, I think he's been here 6 or 7 years, I think now, and it's like you're right. When we signed him for Ipswich, he was mustard, weren't he? He was really, really dynamic, quick, and I think as what happens a lot with West Ham, once they get injured, they keep just getting injured, don't they? It's like, there's not, I mean, it's very gone are the days where a guy gets an injury, like Alan Devonshire, what I'm obviously pick up a lot when we interview people. Alan Devonshire got injured really, really badly, completely changed his game, changed the way, and then had a great career, almost a second career. No one does that anymore now, it's like, and once his pace went, that was it with Cress. But yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a resurgence when we played three at the back. And he was playing on the left of the three. He did all right then, didn't he? And but we haven't necessarily been blessed in recent years. I think the trouble is, once you have Julian Dix, you have been sort of spoiled, really.
Unfortunately, it was just before, and I couldn't really I mean, I was toying with the idea of putting Pablo Armero in. I was discussing this with Charlie, and he was all for me saying Pablo Armero, simply because he was always one of my favourite left backs on FIFA to use with his pace. Yeah. And then he signed for us. I was like, yeah, get in. He can go in my ultimate team now. So if it wasn't for Cresswell, Armero would be in there. But yeah, for me, Cresswell just pips it. So.
Pablo, and he's got a great name. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Pablo Armero. So, yeah. Right. Okay, we'll go with Cress on the left. Let's go with right back. Who do we have right back for the Tom 11?
The biggest headless case I think we've seen at West Ham in quite some time. That would be Thomas Repka. I was there for his first Premier League game. I think that was his debut for us, maybe in 2001. And he was just a headless chicken. And I loved that intensity. I think everybody has their fond memories of Repka of just being this absolute hard nut who nobody would mess with. I think it was him and Colina, the ref, when they had that, argument when at a World Cup or something. Just a no-nonsense fullback who just, I mean, he's in prison now, isn't he? Or he was in prison a couple of years ago for doing something or something like that.
Yeah. He's. I think the last one he did. He sold a hire car. Well, and then he did something with his girlfriend and blackmailed her. It's Thomas Repka, he's even more crazy off the pitch than he was on the pitch.
And I met him a couple of times at the training ground as well, and he was such a lovely guy in real life. But as soon as he stepped in between the lines, almost, it was like just head was switched on, and he was I wouldn't say a leader almost, but you just knew what you were going to get from Repka, and that was just 90 minutes of pure passion and just aggressiveness. Unfortunately, Guy Demel couldn't do enough to get into my 11. But he was. I'm just because I was thinking back of people I've seen throughout the years at right back. and Lucas Neal and a few other players, and it just for me, Repka was obviously the main standout there.
Yeah. No, I get that, and obviously when he famously left, that last game and crying his eyes out like a like a baby, really, and again, it's like someone who's so hard, and then crying like a little girl, really, blubbering,
And I think it stands out to us more because we don't have so many of those sort of players around the squad anymore, unfortunately. And I think that's why players like Repka stand out, because of the passion that they showed. It's a shame we don't have more of those players today, really, unfortunately, that we can sort of rely on.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's very few and far between, isn't it? And also, it's quite rare as well, because he was a foreign-based player, and to have that passion and that connection with the club so quickly was really unusual. But yeah, no, it was good fun, wasn't it? It's like, that's what I mean. We like going to a game and being entertained, and someone like Repka, he's on the edge, isn't he? You just don't know where he's going that day.
For the red card, you don't know what you're going to get.
And even before that, we had people like John Moncur and people like that who were just on the edge of craziness, and you don't know if if someone peed them off getting into the stadium that day. That's it. Whoever's the first left back is going to get munched and stuff. That's what we love. Right, okay, let's go into centre backs. Who's your first centre back?
I'm going to go with Winston Reid here, this centre back. I was torn because we've obviously had so many great centre backs, and I base this 11 off of I wish I could have seen more of Ferdinand and people like that when I was growing up, and I thought it'd be unfair for me to put it in. So for me, I mean, in terms of longevity at the club and servants, I think Winston Reid was both of those. I thought when we first signed him, after that World Cup when he captained New Zealand, I thought even to when we sort of had to sell him and we didn't see him for a while through injury, I always thought he was an absolute stalwart at the time. Talk of him being sold at one point to Arsenal, and he was a fantastic centre back for us. I would always, obviously, people fondly remember him for putting the ball in the back of the Pikey's net and stuff like that. But I think even a lot of players that could have left and gone on to be better or do better things or have a better career, and Reid sort of stayed through tough times and through the good times as well. And obviously scoring the last goal at Upton Park is always going to help your case. So yeah, for me, Winston Reid, it sticks out as one of our better centre backs, I'd say, in the 21st century, or the 2010s, I guess you could say. 2010s.
No, you're right, and I think actually what made it for him was going down to the Championship, because he really cut his teeth a bit quicker then. You know what I mean? And I remember when when there's always hoo-ha, we're signing this World Cup centre back. Oh, who's he gonna be? Who's he gonna be? Italian, Spanish, Argentinian? No, New Zealand. The guys who didn't want fuck all in the thing, but I don't think they conceded a goal in the actual 4 games they played or 3 games they played. But
that's the thing; he never really came in with high expectations, and that was almost good because he hit the ground running straight away and played as well as he did for us for such a long time. So, and I was genuinely, I think more than most, I really wanted him to come back from the long layoff that he had. And sort of slip back in. And it wasn't the case, and it was never going to happen. But it was, like I said, I don't look back and I don't see or have angry memories, or and I'm not peeved with him or annoyed for the way he acted or something. He's always a true professional, and he was sorely missed, I think, having him around.
No, I agree. I mean, he has been here for almost 10 years now. Yeah. He signed him in World Cup 2010, didn't it? So although he's sort of, I think he's still on loan to what's name in the MLS, but who knows? Who knows with Winnie Reid? Right, okay, we'll put Winston Reid in. He is in. Who is the next centre back?
Anton Ferdinand is the next centre back. If we were talking about sort of centre backs of the 2010s, he was my centre back of just before that. That was my kind of first memory of a big, just strong centre half. And I didn't know this until the other day. I did watch his My Hamlers 11 and did notice the little trivia fact that he did win Premier League Player of the Month and was only one of a few centre-backs to ever do it, including him and Rio. So he was in my team before that even happened, but now I know that for future reference. Yeah, for me, he was again at the heart of when times were sort of tough, I guess, in the sort of just before the 2010 period and potentially relegation stuff. A lot of the players in my team, they always gave 110% for the club, and I think that's why I would choose them ahead of most, because Ferdinand was at the club for such a long time before when he was a kid, obviously seeing his brother there, and I can imagine what the club meant to him, and he always seemed to show that when he played on the pitch. And again, if they're not the greatest two pairing of centre halves in the world, but if I want to rely on someone to at least always give their all, I think these two specifically are who I would go with.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. And as you said, it's one of those things where it's your 11, isn't it? So it's the people that you saw. And I mean, Anton, his love for the club is undeniable.
Great stories of Tevez as well. Listening to
in the nightclub. Yeah,
I thought that was fantastic.
And he was so, and that's the thing, he was so like open and honest. He just like went on, and he was like, I think also because he'd spent the afternoon doing irons inside irons, and so maybe he had to be a bit sort of, not corporate, but couldn't get. So he's like, right, okay, just let me tell you about the club. It's like, okay, well, but no, he's a great man, great guy, and I love it. Right, okay, so Anton is in. Let's go centre midfield.
Okay, pretty obvious for this one. Mark Noble. I think unless you were sort of born before '95, you had more of an option as to who your centre mids that you'd go for. I think everybody sort of born after '95, you kind of have to go with Nobes. I think. I mean, the earliest sort of memory I have with Noble was obviously when he was crying after the Spurs game because he thought we were going to go down. And him. Sort of forming that partnership, with Tevez and players like that, and I always try to stick by him. I know Gio has been the same on Hammers Chat. People complain a lot about Noble's legs and should he be starting and should he not? And people were talking about his legs going like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It feels like it's the same discussion every season. But if he's just Mr. West Ham all over, and I'm sure a lot of people had their kind of Mr. West Ham in there. Excuse me, Diet Coke's very busy. They had their Mr. West Ham in sort of years gone past, but I think for the younger generation, it's always been Mark Noble. And I think he will become synonymous with West Ham icons when he retires. And like I said, he may not obviously, and he never has got to the same level as the likes of Moore and Brooking and Hurst or Peters or someone like that, but he will be mentioned among those names as West Ham all-time greats. And
well, he's the same as me. He's like my Billy Bonds, really. I wasn't around to see Billy play. I saw him be a manager for us, but not as a player. And Mark Noble was exactly the same. And I agree. I think it's been the last couple of games has probably until recently, like this season, I thought it was probably one of his strongest seasons for us because it's almost like Deck was doing a lot of the donkey work and he could do a bit more about it, have a bit more freedom. But the last couple of games is pretty much, I mean, that's, everyone can sort of see that's going to be, hopefully, if we stay up, our midfield with Souček and Rice and one other, whoever that third one will be. But I think he's one of those, I mean, as I said, when I was at the Chelsea game, he wasn't in the squad. So he was sat back where the disabled disables, sort of it's already quite nicely socially distanced already, to be honest, because you've got obviously an able-bodied seat, then you've got a wheelchair access. So it was him, I think, David Martin and Martin who does the announcing, and to see you could see how much West Ham meant to him because when that third goal went in, when Yarmolenko scored, you could see he almost punched a hole through the sort of the it was like. You could see, and I'm so annoyed because I wish I had a camera because no one saw it. But I saw it, and I just knew how much the club means to him. And he's been one of those guys who's going to be around the club, around the setup forever. When I interviewed Kevin Keane, he said that he's a really good. He does a lot of coaching with the kids already, and he's really good.
I think he's the perfect. And I mean, when we say perfect, I mean literally the perfect person for young kids coming through. Because I know there's a lot of talk saying, would you have him managing straight away or something like that? Maybe down the line. But if you wanted to, like I said, epitomise anybody that had come through the academy and worked their arse off to be starting every week and become captain of West Ham. He's just such a perfect person for kids to look up to, to come through that academy. So I hope that West Ham do him the service of allowing him to become sort of that youth team or be around the setups as soon as he retires, because I think it would be a great miss to have him go. Come back.
No, I totally agree. And you've got people, and it seems the way the club's going a little bit more now. You've got Carlton Cole, you've got obviously Steve Potts, the 23s, you've got Kevin Keane, the 18s, Konchesky's involved, you've got Zavon Hines is involved. So they are open to doing, and I think you're right. I would see him a bit like, I'd love to see him a bit like how Nolan's positioned at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Because he's like really in there, and I can see Noble fitting in even more so because West Ham is his life. Nolan played for the club for many years and was a very good captain, but it's not in Noble's blood. So no, we'll see, but it's going to be fun. Right, okay, let's crack on. So we've got Noble in. Who is Noble going to partner in that central midfield position?
Speaking of Kevin Nolan, I was so close to putting him in because he was a great servant for us, great skipper, loved all the chicken dance, and obviously helped us in our first sort of years back into the Premier League and formed a good partnership with Allardyce when he was there. But for me, Scotty Parker. I used to love watching Scotty Parker play. He always, those little pirouettes he would do in midfield.
Love a turn. Do you notice Noble does them as well? And it's almost like he's learned. And I saw Deck do one the other day.
Yeah, it's like a rite of passage, really, isn't it? In that centre mid position. But he was such a pleasure to watch, a joy to watch. Another player again who would always give you everything every single week, creative, defensive, whatever it was. Always putting in 110%, had the engine to do it as well. And obviously that year where he was sort of Writers' Player of the Year or whatever it was, he had an outstanding season. And obviously it's never nice when you see some of your best players move to Tottenham. But I couldn't, for some reason, I know a lot of people don't like him for that reason, but I never was able to see that hatred because I always thought he gave some of his best years for the club because his career not necessarily tailed off, but it never was the same after he sort of left us. And it was, he's, again, if we're talking about standout midfielders, I think Scott Parker is up there as one of the sort of the more talented ones we've had in central midfield. And what a player he was. Just a shame he wasn't around for longer than he was.
No, I know what you mean. But he was one of those players, and there's a very few number of players at West Ham I've seen play who, if things aren't going well in the game, he takes it upon himself to make them better. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like he'd gone like, fuck it, no, I'm going to do it myself. No one else is doing it. I'm going to do it, and he would run his arse off, that boy. He would come off the pitch and you could barely walk. He was putting so much effort in. We could do a few of them at the moment. It's like we do have some, like Bowen's got that sort of sense of him. It's like a dog with a bone. He'll just keep going, won't he? And Deck will keep going. But and I just think Scott Parker was brilliant, and I agree. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I think who can become sports writer, and I believe it was the same year, sports writer of the year, or the player of the year, whatever it was. The season we went down, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. That's how impressive he was that year. To do it in a going down effort was just unbelievable.
And on Hammers of the Year 3 years in a row as well. It's like, again, I think it's only Billy Bonds or someone else. There's not many people have done that, but he's brilliant. Right, let's put Scotty in. Okay, let's go left midfield, left wing, whatever.
Dimitri Payet. Controversial one, but I'm pretty sure this guy gave so many people some of their happiest memories in recent time. He took us to a whole nother level in that 2014-ish season when we left the Boleyn. It feels so long ago now. Crazy. But he gave us so many happy memories. That was around the time when I was travelling home and away a lot, so I had the pleasure of seeing multiple free kicks of his. I mean, the Newcastle game when he had a brace, the Blackburn game I was there when he had a brace. He was just magical to watch. He glided across the pitch, and I wanted him to do so well in that European tournament. I'm sure most of us at home were exactly like Bilic was when he was on the table, celebrating when he scored against Romania. But you could tell that he was always too good for us, unfortunately. The way he left was very sour, and the reasons behind it, I guess, are still a bit misty. But he was just such a talented player. And I saw the stat today that somebody put out that Dimitri Payet has created the most chances for West Ham still in however long, and he left the club like however many years ago. So I think, as the youth today call it, the streets will never forget Dimitri Payet's first season with us, because it was. I mean, to be, what is it, like 14th or 15th in Ballon d'Or voting as well that year. I mean, he plays for West Ham. It's just those kind of things didn't happen.
Wasn't it? And it was like, when we actually, I think when I was interviewing Gonzo, we spoke about it. So obviously you had the song, and who was I talking to? I think I was talking to, when I was talking to Chris Akabusi, we were talking about the song, and he said, "Oh, I love that song. It was so like, it was so trite. We've got Payet." But I agree with Gonzo's, interpretation. It was almost out of, disbelief. We've got Payet. I just don't think we understand. He's superstar. Who's this guy? And it's like, we had this guy who was, for that season particularly, the guy in the Premier League. When's that ever happened at West Ham? Do you know what I mean? It's like, he was brilliant, and and he is the best player, technically the best player I've seen at West Ham. Not the best player overall. I think you probably, I reckon you probably got him in your team coming up, but the best technical player, I think, because he was also, as you stage free kicks. Nothing of the bloke.
I still remember that, the one against Palace, and I was sat and we were doing. I was in Sheffield at uni, and I remember I was on the phone to my dad at the time, who wasn't at the game, and I just remember I was like, Payet's taking a free kick, and I went, "Oh, he's missed. It's gone over." And I went, "Oh, wait a minute, no, it's gone in." And I just sat watching those replays. Has he done that? But that was it. It was almost just like you expected him to perform well. Never have I ever felt like I watched a player week in, week out, and he was going to perform every single week. And it was like 9 times out of 10 he was the best player on the pitch. And it just unbelievable. No, it's not happening, Charlie. Go away.
Charlie, we just like fuck off about Jordan.
Every live stream, somebody sees him, it'll be hashtag recall Big George.
Recall Big George. Yeah. I put that back in for him. I did that. No, but you're right with Payet. Payet was just incredible, and he made that last season at the Bowling. I don't think that it wouldn't have been half the distance. Oh, thank you very much, Giants United. No, it wouldn't be the same. Wouldn't have been the same, because obviously he made such a big impression, and it was just great fun watching him. And you said, he was exciting. You'd get, and before Payet, you know what I mean? It's like for Di Canio, probably the last person who did that. Oh God, here he goes. Yeah, cheers, Charlie. You haven't had anyone like that. Before he had the ball, he was excited. I remember I think it might have been Everton. He'd been injured for a couple of games in the Everton game. Yeah, I think it was Everton. He was on the bench, and you could hear just we got Payet, and they were calling for him to come on, and he came on, and you thought, gee, here he comes, and he thought he's been injured.
He came back from in the Liverpool game after the McCarthy incident or whatever it was. The sound when he returned onto the pitch, and it was just
it was Liverpool, not Everton.
I've not heard that in just such a long time at West Ham to be just. I mean, that player for me is coming up in a minute, but it's unbelievable
No,
player.
You're right, and he just and because he was injured, and he did I think he did a 360 straight away. He's back. Right. Okay, we'll put Payet in. Let's go for right wing. Who we got right wing?
Joey Cole. For me, Joey, I don't remember too many of his earliest memories for me. In that second spell, obviously, he was a bit more. I was too young to remember his sort of when he just broke through into the first team. But the first couple of games I do remember, obviously, when I went to see West Ham for the first time in 2001, he, I think, came on as a substitute in that game, and he was there for a couple of seasons. But he had so much talent, and it was a joy to watch him growing up. Even when he went over to Chelsea or England, I always secretly wanted him to do well, because he's always been such a nice, likeable guy, and he never really almost wanted to show it back in your face, kind of thing. But unfortunately, injuries derailed his career. but when he came back to West Ham that year, almost, I don't know, it just, again, somebody that clearly loved the club and wanted the club to do well. May not have played week in, week out 100% of the time, but his effort and his contribution nonetheless. He was kind of along with one of my strikers, he was the first sort of players I remember watching at West Ham. And obviously he was there for a couple of years after the likes of Lampard and Ferdinand and stuff, and was the last of that bunch to go. So I remember him more than the other guys growing up. But yeah, for me, and I know Joey Cole was Charlie's sort of hero growing up, and he was mine almost until a certain man came along from Argentina. But yeah, he's a fantastic player. Always would have liked to have seen him come back to the club as well.
Jonathan Calleri, we're talking about.
Yes, of course. Yeah, Jonathan Calleri. So
I was quickly racking my brains with Argentinian.
But yeah, what a guy! I just wish that he could have been around for more in his prime years. Not before he came back to us for the second time, but that first time, if he'd stayed around for a little bit more. But unfortunately, Chelsea decided to be a twat and take him. But yeah,
but do you know what I love about him? I love him on BT Sport. I think he's brilliant. He's he's brilliant. He did the game yesterday actually. But his insight, and I mean you can catch it on YouTube because they always do like him and Jake Humphries back at the studio, and he's brilliant. And when he talks about West Ham, he hits the nail on the head every time. He just gets West Ham. He gets what's the issues. He gets what can be done. And no, I just think he's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I would love him at West Ham. Never happened, but I'd love him at West Ham. I don't think maybe one day, but and as Andy Walsh has said in the comments, you were right. He signed his first pro. Yeah, I think it was against Chelsea, I believe, if I'm right, at half time. So I remember Jeremy Nicholas saying, Tell your grandkids you were there when Joe Cole signed his pro, and it was against Chelsea. So, as always happens with West Ham, it's always for someone else's benefit. But right, we'll put Joe in. Joey's in. Let's go strikers.
Okay,
first one.
Obvious one. We'll go first, which is Paulo Di Canio.
What?
pretty picky on. Paulo Di Canio first. Again, along with Joey Cole, I guess I would say the first sort of player. Him, Trevor Sinclair, Joey Cole, that era, that shirt with the Dr. Martens, just looking at the photo there. He just, I don't know, he's one of those talismanic players that West Ham have had, and he's just another level of brilliance. Thankfully, I was around and remember some of his sort of later goals before he left the club. But just in terms of just charisma and everything, there's just so many words to describe Paulo. I think everybody sort of has that memory of him, meeting him at the training ground as well when I was younger and that kind of stuff. And he's just what a man for West Ham. I guess I wouldn't necessarily say he put West Ham on the map, but he almost helped bring us into the 21st century in terms of just being that Premier League icon for us almost, but he just, and again, 100% of the time, passion and the goals he scored for us, and the manner in which he left, and so the love I have for this club and all that kind of stuff. He just, what a man, and I'll never forget sort of him coming back, Martin O'Well's testimonial, and he could do no wrong at West Ham. He could break in at night, steal some of the seats. I don't know. He could do no wrong in West Ham's eyes. That man just owns the pitch. There's just this aura about him. Thankfully, I was at Noble's testimonial, and just seeing him and what he did, just his aura about him when he came back, it's just that love for him has never disappeared. And I would challenge most people to not have him in their starting 11s.
You're totally right. At the end of the day, the man was bloody inked with West Ham. He's got a West Ham tattoo, and I just think with Paulo, I think he's one of those players who, as I said, I think Payet's the best technical player I've seen at West Ham. I think Paulo's the best player because you've got that technical ability, you've got that passion, you've got that entertainment value, and all those three together, it makes a player. And he was just box office. It was again a bit like Repka. You were excited in that era to go to West Ham because you didn't know what was going to happen. who thought one Saturday you're going to turn up and you're playing Bradford City, and then you have a game which you still talk about, you know, was it 20 years later? It's mental, and it's, I just love it. And they did a thing, didn't they, the other day, that the actually Irons United have just put it up. Yeah, they he put up West Ham did all his goals. It was like a montage, and yeah, and you go back and hear about all his idiosyncrasies in that, you know, the Arsenal game. We had his shorts on backwards, because he, you know, and I talked to, obviously we're interviewing lots of different people, and there's lots of different stories, their own personal stories about Paolo, and some of them are brilliant. You know, like how he would, when he was Swindon manager, and John Joe and Gary Herman, they went. He invited them to the ground to see him after a game, and he basically opened up this drawer at Swindon. It's full of pictures of his time at West Ham, and you know. I know, and it's like was it? So it's Nicky Hawkins, and they did like one of those pre-match events, and Paolo was there, and he was all really dapper, really dressed up, you know, in the nines, as you can imagine. And Nicky went, "Looking good, Paolo," and he just went, "I always dress up for my family." Like,
man.
Mic drop, innit? It's like a total mic drop. Love him. Love him. Right, okay, so Paolo is in. We have one more piece of the pie, and
cherry on top of this pie.
Yes, yeah, the cherry on top. Jonathan Calleri. Let's talk about it now.
Yeah, Carlos Tevez.
Yeah,
Carlos Tevez. My first just proper love for West Ham, and I know it was one season, but the effect that this man had on me, I was always kind of a West Ham fan until Tevez came, and I've always had a love and passion for the club before Tevez, but when Tevez came, it was kind of that season was when I really fell in love with not only just Tevez, but in terms of just falling in love with West Ham as well. And obviously all season it took him to score his first goal, it felt like. And when that free kick went in against Spurs, I was obviously, I mean, I was in Yorkshire at the time, but I remember just being sat in front of the telly, and I've never celebrated somebody's goal so much, other than maybe Winston Reid against United. I've never celebrated a goal so much. And the happiness I felt for him, because you could see it all over his face. And it wasn't like he didn't try every single week when he was playing. He always gave his all. But when that first goal came, it was just one of the best runs we've almost seen from a striker at West Ham, I guess, for years almost. I mean, probably closest to that was the Afrasako that did it, you know, in terms of scoring game after game. But that great escape, those last couple of months he had for West Ham, I don't know, it imprinted on me so much. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, or if you see most, I mean, my PlayStation handle is, my online name is Athers32. My Twitter is Athers32. My passwords when I was at school, don't anybody try and hack me, by the way, because it's changed now. But it was always Tevez32. Like I said, he was, for me, I'm sorry, Charlie. Like I said, he had such an effect on me. He was partly down to the reason why I fell in love with West Ham. And I was at the game, the first game back, when he came back to us with Man United. And again, I was in the chicken run that day with my dad, and I'll never forget just the guy coming over the tannoy and saying, you know, "Oh, Cristiano Ronaldo, boo, and reigning hammer of the year, Carlos Tevez," and he was giving it all this, and the cheer that went up for him. And yeah, it was just what a player. And I was so happy that we were linked with him the other day, and I saw the article.
36, but you know,
but yeah, he was kind of my idol growing up. It was always Ronaldinho and then Carlos Tevez for some reason. Ronaldinho was the reason why I fell in love with football, and Carlos Tevez was the reason I fell in love really with West Ham. So yeah.
And do you think, you know, and it's the same with most players, but with Tevez particularly, because he came and literally, as Irons United said, obviously just turned up, him and Mascherano, almost like they were, I don't know, like it was almost like they were kidnapped. It looked like it, you know.
I remember I was at school that day, and it was kind of like I looked at my phone, and I was kind of a bit like, West Ham have just signed Tevez and Mascherano. I was like, no, we haven't. And then the picture comes out of them and Pardew and they're holding the shirts and stuff. And I was just walking around like we'd just won the Premier League or we'd won the World Cup. It was like, yeah, well, look at who we've got. Knowing full well that we were going to probably get relegated that year. But to be able to have those two at the club, for whatever reason, Hayden Mullins used to start week in, week out instead of Mascherano. But besides the point. But to have those two at the club, I was just, it was, I just walked around like the dog's bollocks basically every single day.
You and I and United by the looks of it. No, I know what you mean. I remember at work, it was just came on the BBC ticker, and then you were like the talk. Everyone, you were the water cooler moment. Russ, Tevez, and I know. And it was like they did look like they had this been bundled in to a car, and it was like, what? Where am I? You've got to go to Chadwell Heath for training. What is that? Maybe the pub down there, maybe check our left. It's like, what? Okay. But and you're right. We waited for ages for that first goal to come in. And as you said, it was almost because he was almost trying too much, wasn't he, Carlos? It seemed. And Curbs literally went, right, you stay up there and don't move. Yeah. And a bit like what Moyes did with Arnautovic. Arnautovic was lost in the right wing. Come up front, you just stay there and we kick the ball to you and you run. That's it. It's such a simple game. But you're right. He came in and made like such an impact. And obviously, the goals were really important. And as you said before, Anton talks a great story about Carlos in the nightclub with his translator.
So good to hear that.
Absolutely brilliant. And even when I interviewed John Pansel, same thing. I just said to him, what happens, you turn up for training and then, there's two, Argentine internationals in the team. And he was like, it's football. It's football. What do you do? It's like, exactly. But, I
do think, though, that the fans were willing to give him the time of day because he did always give his all when he played for us. And you could see that the ability was there. And I think that's why the fans were willing to give him the time of day. That was why when he did score that first goal, it was just one of the best recent sort of memories in West Ham.
Release, wasn't it?
It was, not just for him, but for the entire fan base, because it was just, we all wanted it so badly for him. But I loved every single time he came back to play against us or we played. He always had the time of day to come over and he started, obviously, those cross lines. So, and he always gave us the time of day as a fans, and he never forgot where he came from. And obviously, if that was true, and the quote that he said the other week about, there's only one club close to my heart over here, and that was West Ham. And he may never come back. I almost hope he doesn't, because he would break the wage bill. But it was what a man! What a man!
What a man! What a way to finish the first live at 11. A nice one. Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you for everyone for people, continual people logging in all the time, which does surprise me. But obviously, comments and stuff. Really appreciate all the support for the channel. And basically, and I don't think Charlie's going to talk to you now, by the sounds of it.
That's it. Well, Charlie, look, I'm sorry. We'll hash it out and we'll get back to streaming against Norwich at the weekend and we'll be fine. But no, this format of it's been brilliant. I'm sure the more people realise that you're doing these live, there'll be people coming through the door from this. But it's such a good thought. I've said this to Charlie. I'm so annoyed at you for thinking of something like this because this is such a good format for a show. It's brilliant. It honestly, absolutely is fantastic.
It's not just you that I think's annoyed. That's all we'll say. That's all we'll say. Anyway, until next time, everybody, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you again very, very soon. And I think, Tom, we have to close with the Carlos crossed hammers.
Me too.
Put it the right way. Cover your eyes. See you later, guys. Take care. Love to you all.